The night sky of the Galactic Empire was peaceful, too peaceful. Stars sparkled like tiny lanterns across the endless dark sea, unaware of the silent storm that was about to come. Far beyond the shining core worlds and the glittering rings of trade routes, a faint shimmer appeared near the edge of the Empire's territory. At first, the outpost scanners thought it was just debris, a small, dull object floating through space. The operator, a young alien cadet named Pharaoh, yawned and rubbed his tired eyes. He had seen thousands of objects drift past before. Old satellites, forgotten cargo pods, bits of metal from long-lost wars. Nothing unusual ever happened in this quiet sector. But then the readings began to change. The object wasn't drifting anymore. It was moving. Slowly at first, then steadily gaining speed. A clear and deliberate path heading straight for the Imperial system. Pharaoh frowned and checked his display again. "That's odd," he muttered. "It's not responding to pings. No transponder code, no ID. It's like..." He stopped mid-sentence. The signal was old, very old. A human signal. His heart skipped a beat. He called his supervisor, who at first didn't believe him. Humans were a name only found in history records. A long-lost species that the Galactic Empire had erased from the stars 100 years ago. The official archives called them a species too dangerous to exist, but few knew the real story. Now one of their ships was back. A forgotten name. The ship's name was UHS Vigilant. It moved with a quiet grace, its black hull absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Unlike the bright silver ships of the Empire, the Vigilant seemed made for shadows. Its surface carried marks of ancient battles, long scars that told stories of pain and survival. Inside the ship, Captain Elias Ward sat in his command chair, his eyes calm but heavy with years of silence. His hair was gray, his uniform simple and unadorned. In front of him floated a faint blue hologram, a woman's face kind but distant. It was Athena, the ship's AI. "Captain," she said softly, "we have crossed into Imperial space." Elias didn't move. He looked out through the wide window at the stars, the same stars that had once guided humankind to greatness, and then watched as their cities turned to dust. "I never thought I'd see these stars again," he whispered. "Do you wish to proceed?" Athena asked. He closed his eyes for a long moment before answering. "Yes, begin approach sequence." Silent running. No signals. "Understood, Captain." The lights dimmed and the hum of the engine softened to a low whisper. The Vigilant glided forward like a ghost returning home. The Empire's calm on. The capital world of the Galactic Empire. Life continued as usual. Massive towers touched the clouds. Glowing cities spread across continents, and thousands of ships came and went from orbiting docks. To most citizens, the Empire felt eternal, too big to fall, too powerful to fear anything. In the Imperial Command Center, high above the capital, Admiral Vortan reviewed fleet reports. He was tall, with silver skin and a voice that carried authority. When an officer rushed into the room with a data tablet, the Admiral barely looked up. "What is it?" he asked. "Sir, we've detected a ship entering from the Outer Rim." "No identification code. Pirates?" "No, sir. The readings are unusual. The signature matches old records. Human design." The Admiral laughed. It was a deep, proud sound. "Humans? My friend, those creatures are dust. Their worlds are empty. Someone is using old codes to play a trick." The officer hesitated. "Perhaps, sir. But the readings are real. It's heading this way, directly toward the core." The Admiral waved his hand dismissively. "Send a small patrol. Destroy it if needed. Don't waste my time." The officer nodded and left. Vortan looked out the wide glass wall, admiring the fleet that floated like jewels around the planet. He had no reason to fear a single ship. After all, the Empire had crushed entire civilizations before breakfast. But deep in his mind, a tiny seed of unease took root. Echoes of the past on the Vigilant, Captain Ward walked slowly through the corridors. Every wall held engraved names, long lists of colonies, ships, and people that had once been human. The air felt cold and lonely, like the breath of time itself. Athena's gentle voice followed him. "Captain, the Imperial Patrol will reach us within 1 hour." "I know," he said quietly. "Let them come." He stopped before a large panel in the center of the hall. It showed a planet, Earth shining blue and white, surrounded by stars. Beneath it, a small line of text read, "For those who dreamed among the stars." Elias placed his hand on the panel, his eyes soft. "You were beautiful once," he said. "And they took you from us." Athena remained silent. She had heard these words before, not in anger, but in sorrow. "Elias," she said gently, "the Requiem protocol is ready if you command it." He turned his gaze toward the command deck. "Not yet. I want them to see us first. I want them to remember who we are." The first contact an hour later, 3 Imperial cruisers appeared on the Vigilance sensors. They were sleek, shining ships, each the size of a city. Their communication channels opened at once, broadcasting a sharp, commanding voice. "Unknown vessel, this is Imperial Fleet Unit 09. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." Athena's calm voice translated it aloud for the captain. "Shall I respond, Captain?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, send this message. This is the United Human Ship Vigilant. We are not here to fight. We are here to be remembered." Athena sent the transmission. For a long moment there was silence. Then laughter echoed across the channel. "Human, impossible. You're a machine with a broken code," the Imperial commander replied. "Withdraw now or we will open fire." The captain leaned back in his chair. His voice remained calm. "They haven't changed," he said softly. "Still proud. Still blind?" Athena asked. "Should we activate defense systems?" "No," Elias said. "Hold position. Let them make their choice." A test of fear. The Empire's cruisers began to circle the Vigilant. Their scanners swept across the ship trying to read its structure. But every attempt failed. The Vigilant's hull absorbed every signal like a black mirror, giving nothing back. Inside one of the cruisers, the alien commander frowned. "Their hull isn't standard. Energy readings are impossible to read. It's like it's alive." Another officer whispered. "Could it really be human?" The commander laughed again, though his voice shook slightly. "If it is, then it's a relic. Let's end this and go home." Outside, their ships aligned into attack formation. The Vigilant remained still, a single dark shape among the stars. Inside, Captain Ward looked at the holographic screen showing the 3 enemy ships approaching. "Athena," he said softly. "Open a channel, wideband." "Channel open," Elias spoke, his voice calm and clear, carried across the stars. "To the commanders of the Galactic Empire, you once said humans were too dangerous to exist. You erased our worlds. You buried our names. And yet here I am, 1 man, 1 ship, 1 memory. You cannot destroy a memory." There was no reply. Only the quiet hum of space. The whispering stars as the cruisers closed in, something strange began to happen. The stars around them seemed to flicker, not from light but from sound. A faint whisper spread through the radio channels, an old Earth melody carried by the static. None of the Imperial officers recognized it, but Athena did. She spoke softly. "It's an old human song, Captain. Blue skies." Elias smiled faintly. "Let it play." The melody filled the bridge, gentle, calm, peaceful. A song that once played in cities under open skies long before war or fear. Even the Empire's ships paused for a moment. The sound traveled through their communication lines, echoing softly in their ears. It was haunting and beautiful. A voice from a forgotten time. A memory returns. The Imperial commander finally spoke, his voice unsure. "Human ship, who are you really? What do you want?" Captain Ward answered simply. "We want nothing. We only came to remind the stars that we existed." The commander stared at the screen. He had read stories about humans, the way they built wonders, the way they destroyed themselves, the way they vanished without leaving a trace. But now one of them stood before him, calm and unafraid. "You should have stayed hidden," the commander said finally. "The Empire doesn't remember ghosts kindly." "Then let it remember," Elias replied. The calm before everything. The cruisers powered up their engines. The space between the ships shimmered with silent tension. Inside the Vigilant, every system remained quiet. Athena's soft voice broke the silence. "Captain, they're preparing to engage." "I know," he said. "Prepare the next phase. When they strike, we'll answer, not with anger, but with truth." He looked once more at the hologram of Earth glowing faintly beside him. It's time the galaxy remembered where kindness once began. The ship drifted forward slightly, its dark hull reflecting nothing. like a shadow of history returning to life. And as the Empire's first attack wave began to form, the Vigilant waited in silence, calm, patient, and unshaken, a single human heartbeat against the might of an empire. The stars seemed to hold their breath, because on that quiet night, something lost was finally found again. The night of the Empire was bright with artificial stars. Fleets of ships glided across the dark sky above the capital world, their silver hulls glowing under the twin moons. On the surface below, great cities stretched beyond the horizon, towers shining like pillars of light, roads filled with air cars and banners that carried the golden emblem of the Galactic Empire. For thousands of years, this empire had ruled half the galaxy. To its citizens it felt unbreakable. To its rulers it seemed eternal. And to its enemies it was something to fear and obey. Yet, that night a single human warship, UHS, Vigilant, moved quietly within the Empire's borders, and nobody truly understood what that meant. The meeting at high command in the tall glass tower of the Imperial Command Center, Admiral Vortan stood before a massive holographic map of the Empire. His silver armor reflected the light of distant stars, and his sharp eyes scanned the map carefully. All around him, officers hurried with reports, their voices filled with concern. "Sir, the patrol group that was sent to intercept the unknown vessel. They have not responded." "Not responded?" Vortan repeated slowly. "Did they engage?" "No, sir. The last transmission we received was strange." A voice identified itself as a human. After that silence, the room went still. Even the sound of the air vents seemed to fade. For a long moment, Vortan said nothing. Then slowly he smiled. "Human, impossible. The last of them were erased long before my grandfather's time. This must be a trick." "Sir, the energy readings from that vessel don't match anything in our database," one officer added. "It is beyond standard technology." The Admiral turned sharply. "Do not exaggerate, Commander. No single ship can vanish an entire fleet. Perhaps the patrol made a mistake. Perhaps they ran into a nebula field. Find out before you speak of legends." His words were cold and proud, but deep in his eyes there was a flicker of unease. Something small, something human-like. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. "Send another fleet," he ordered quietly. "Double their strength. And this time, bring me proof." The whisper in the Empire far across the Empire, whispers began to spread. Among pilots, traders, and dock workers, the same strange story was being told. "A ghost ship appeared at the rim," one worker said. "They say it's from an ancient race," another replied. "Humans know their myths." But still, the patrol vanished. In every corner of the Empire, from mining colonies to deep space stations, people began to talk. Some laughed, some feared, and some remembered the old stories told in secret. Stories about humans who had burned bright and vanished into the stars. No one knew the truth, but everyone felt the same uneasy chill in their hearts. Something was coming. The Vigilant's journey, inside the Vigilant. Captain Elias Ward sat in silence on the command deck. The stars outside seemed calm, but his heart was not. His face was tired but peaceful, as though he had made peace with time itself. Athena's soft blue holographic form stood near him. "Captain, the Second Imperial Fleet has been launched. They are larger and better armed than before." "How long before they reach us?" 3 hours, Elias nodded. "Plenty of time." He rose from his seat and walked to the window where the galaxy stretched endlessly beyond. His voice was low and thoughtful. "They still don't understand, Athena. They think power comes from weapons and numbers. They never learned that it comes from memory, from heart." "Humans always believed that," Athena replied. He smiled faintly. "That's why we lasted as long as we did." The ship continued its quiet journey through space, its engines glowing softly like a fading star. The Empire's pride hours later, deep in the void near the system of Mirren, the Second Imperial Fleet arrived. Dozens of ships lined up in perfect formation, glowing blue shields, silver hulls, and banners fluttering in the light of distant suns. The fleet's commander, Admiral Sarai, was known for her discipline. Her voice was calm, sharp, and full of confidence. "All units in position. Unknown vessel located ahead. Maintain scan." The Vigilant appeared on their sensors as a single small dot, unmoving and silent. "Such a small ship," one officer said. Are we sure this is the one that caused the disappearance? Sarai didn't answer. She studied the readings carefully. The Vigilant was not sending any signals, not showing any weapon systems. It looked harmless. But something about it felt wrong, too still, too quiet. Open communication, she ordered. A moment later, Athena's calm voice filled the bridge. Imperial Fleet, this is the human ship Vigilant. We do not wish to fight. The bridge fell silent. Sarai frowned. Human ship, you are trespassing in restricted territory. The Empire does not recognize your existence. Leave now, a pause. Then Captain Ward's steady voice came through. We left once before. You made sure of it. But memories have a way of returning, Admiral. Sarai's hands tightened on the console. What do you want? Only to be remembered. The ghost of history. The words echoed across the fleet's communication channels. Officers looked at each other, unsure what to say. Some felt anger, others confusion. Finally, Sarai spoke again. If you truly are human, then you know the Empire cannot allow your presence here. Stand down and prepare to be escorted for questioning. Elias looked at Athena and smiled sadly. Questioning. That's what they called it when they erased our worlds. Athena's light flickered softly. Do you wish to leave, Captain? No, I wish to speak. He opened a channel again. Admiral Sarai, long ago your Empire feared humanity. You believed we were too unpredictable, too emotional, too free. You said we could not be controlled, so you tried to erase us. But freedom doesn't vanish. It sleeps. The Admiral stared at the holographic projection of the human's face. There was no anger in his eyes, only calm sorrow, like someone who had seen too much. Even if your words are true, she said softly, you cannot face the Empire alone. Alone? Elias repeated. No, Admiral. Every name on this ship stands with me. Every memory, every dream we lost, the transmission ended. Silence filled the void once again. Out among the stars, Admiral Sarai stood quietly at the front of her bridge. Around her, her officers waited for her command, but she said nothing. The human's words had touched something deep inside her, something she did not want to feel. Once, long ago, when she was a cadet, she had read about the humans in hidden archives. Their music, their art, their courage. The Empire had called them dangerous, but she had always wondered why. Now she thought she understood. Admiral? Her second-in-command asked. Orders? She took a deep breath. Hold your fire. I want to know what we're facing. The officer nodded but looked uncertain. The fleet floated in formation, ready yet waiting. Meanwhile, the Vigilant remained still. Its lights pulsed faintly like the slow beating of a heart. In the heart of the ship captain, Ward returned to his quarters. The room was small and quiet, filled with old photographs, children playing under trees, cities filled with laughter, faces that had long turned to dust. He picked up a small metallic object, a music player. When he pressed a button, a soft melody filled the air. It was the same song from before. Blue skies. Athena appeared beside him. That song again, Captain? It reminds me of home, he said softly. Not of what was lost, but of what was beautiful. Do you think they will remember? Elias looked out at the stars beyond the glass. They already have. They just don't know it yet. A light in the darkness back on the Imperial capital, news of the strange human ship reached the Emperor himself. He was an old being, wise and proud, wrapped in robes of gold. His eyes burned with curiosity. So the humans return, he said. How amusing. Perhaps the universe wishes to test us again. His advisor bowed. Your Majesty, should we send the royal fleet? Not yet, the Emperor replied. Let us see what this ghost desires. Sometimes the smallest flame shows the truth of a kingdom. He turned toward the wide window that showed the night sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds and stars, a single human ship floated in silence. Humans, he whispered. Let us see if your fire still burns. The calm before storm in deep space, the Vigilant and the Imperial fleet remained locked in quiet tension. No weapons, no words, only waiting. Athena broke the silence first. Captain, their scanners are still active. They are afraid but also curious. That's good, Elias said. Fear fades. Curiosity builds bridges. Do you trust them? He smiled faintly. I trust hope. The stars outside glowed softly. The ship drifted among them like a memory reborn. The Emperor's command hours later, a transmission arrived at the Imperial fleet's bridge. It was the Emperor himself. Admiral Sarai. His voice boomed, calm but heavy. Stand down. Do not engage the human. Escort them to the capital. I wish to speak with this captain. Sarai bowed. As you command, Majesty. She turned to her officers. Prepare escort formation. No aggression. Treat them as honored guests. Whispers ran through the fleet. The Empire had never shown mercy to outsiders, and yet now, the Emperor himself wished to meet a human. The Vigilant began to move, following the Imperial ships toward the shining world at the center of the galaxy. For the first time in 100 years, a human vessel flew openly under the banner of the Empire it once defied. A promise in the stars inside the Vigilant, Athena spoke softly. Captain, are you sure this is wise? They might try to trap us. They might, Elias said with a small smile. But they also might listen. And that's enough for me. Athena, record this. The journey to the capital world of the Galactic Empire was long and silent. Dozens of Imperial cruisers surrounded the UHS Vigilant, their silver hulls shining against the dark sea of stars. Inside each ship, soldiers watched the lone human vessel with uneasy curiosity. Some were afraid. Some were proud. But none could look away. To most of them, humans were legends, names in history books, warnings from their teachers. Yet now, one of those forgotten beings was traveling beside them, calm and unshaken. The Empire's fleet moved in perfect order. But the Vigilant moved differently, quiet, smooth, like a ghost that refused to fade. Inside, Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, gazing at the massive planet growing larger ahead. It was the capital world, the shining heart of the Empire covered in towers, light, and pride. Athena's gentle voice echoed through the room. Captain, the Imperial fleet is guiding us into low orbit. They seem cautious but not hostile. That's a good sign, Elias said softly. Maybe they're beginning to see reason. Or maybe they are planning something, Athena added carefully. Elias smiled faintly. You've always been the cautious one. And you've always trusted too easily, she replied with a touch of warmth. He looked at the planet again. Sometimes trust is the only thing worth giving. Arrival at the capital. The capital world of the Galactic Empire was a masterpiece of engineering. From space, it looked like a bright blue gem surrounded by silver rings. Giant cities covered its surface, glowing with energy. Starports stretched like shining webs, welcoming fleets from every corner of the galaxy. As the Vigilant entered orbit, thousands of eyes watched from the ground. People filled the city plazas, staring up at the sky where the mysterious human ship was arriving under escort. News channels broadcasted the event live. For the first time in a century, one reporter said, a human vessel has entered the Empire's heart. The Emperor himself has requested a meeting with its captain. Whispers filled the air. Some spoke with fear, others with fascination. Is it true? A real human? They were supposed to be gone forever. Maybe they came in peace. For a moment, the Empire, proud, vast, and unshakable, paused in wonder. The Emperor's Hall. The Vigilant was guided to a great landing platform near the Imperial Palace. The palace itself was enormous, carved from white crystal and gold. Its towers rose high into the clouds, and long banners waved in the gentle wind. When Captain Elias Ward stepped out of his ship, the entire plaza grew silent. He was tall, calm, and dressed in a simple dark uniform. No weapons, no guards, just quiet dignity. The sunlight reflected off his gray hair as he walked down the ramp. Thousands of soldiers stood at attention. High-ranking officials whispered to one another. None of them had ever seen a human before. From the far end of the plaza, the great doors of the palace opened, and Emperor Kalor appeared. He was tall and elegant, his golden robe flowing around him. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, studied Elias carefully. The Emperor raised his hand in greeting. Welcome, Captain of Humanity. You have traveled far to reach us. Elias bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I came not as an enemy, but as a messenger. A messenger of what? Kalor asked. Of memory, Elias replied softly. Of what your empire chose to forget. The Emperor's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew curious. Then speak, human. The galaxy listens. The words of the past inside the grand hall the Emperor and his council gathered. The room shimmered with blue light, filled with golden pillars and floating banners. At its center stood Elias, calm and firm, with Athena's holographic form beside him. Your Majesty, Elias began. 100 years ago, the Empire declared humanity a danger to peace. You destroyed our colonies and silenced our voice. You said we were too emotional, too unpredictable, too free. He looked around the hall, his voice steady but filled with quiet strength. Maybe you were right. We were emotional. We were unpredictable, but those things gave us heart. They made us build worlds, love deeply, and dream beyond limits. The council members whispered among themselves. Some rolled their eyes, others looked uncertain. The Emperor remained silent. We never wanted war, Elias continued. We wanted to learn, to grow, to share. But fear blinded the Empire, and when you tried to erase us, you didn't just destroy our people. You tried to erase an idea, that freedom belongs to everyone. For the first time, the Emperor spoke. The past cannot be changed, Captain. No, Elias said softly, but it can be remembered. The Emperor's doubt. The Emperor studied Elias for a long time. There was no anger in his eyes, only thought. Finally he asked, why now? Why come back after 100 years? Elias looked down for a moment, then answered, because silence is worse than death. We waited in the shadows, rebuilding what little we had left. We wanted peace, but peace built on forgetting is no peace at all. We came not to destroy, but to remind. Remind us of what? That power without mercy is weakness. That control without understanding is emptiness. The Emperor leaned back in his golden chair. You speak with wisdom, human. But do you truly believe one ship and one man can change the course of an empire? Elias smiled faintly. One voice can change more than 1,000 armies, Your Majesty. History has shown it before. The Emperor's lips curved into a small smile. Perhaps you are right. A meeting of minds, the conversation continued for hours. They spoke of history, of hope, of mistakes, and of dreams. For the first time in centuries, the imperial palace echoed with the sound of human words. Words not of war, but of truth. Athena spoke too, her voice soft and gentle. She explained the technology of the Vigilant, the long years of exile, and how humanity survived in the void. The Emperor listened carefully, asking questions, sometimes even smiling faintly. By the end of the meeting, something had changed in the air, a sense of quiet understanding, fragile but real. When Elias finally bowed and turned to leave, the Emperor said, Captain Ward, you speak of peace, but peace requires trust. The Empire has not trusted humanity for a long time. Elias stopped at the door and looked back. Then start with me. The Emperor watched him go, thoughtful and silent. Whispers of change in the following days. The Empire buzzed with talk of the human captain. Some called him a hero. Others called him a fool. In the halls of power, officials argued. He is dangerous, one shouted.
He could be a spy.
He speaks with honesty, another said. Perhaps we should listen. The Emperor remained silent, thinking deeply. He spent hours reading old archives about humanity, their art, their music, their stories. He listened to ancient Earth melodies that still survived in the data vaults. One night, he stood alone on his balcony, watching the stars. They were dreamers, he said softly, and we feared them for it. Inside the Vigilant, meanwhile, aboard the Vigilant, Athena noticed a strange energy reading deep within the ship's core. Captain, she said, I am detecting unusual activity in the Requiem core. Elias looked up from his console. The Requiem core? That system hasn't been active for years. It is awakening, Athena replied. Perhaps because we are near the Empire's heart. He frowned. Can you stabilize it? I can try, she said softly, but, Captain, if it fully activates, it could send a signal to every world within range. A message, or a memory. Elias stood in silence for a moment. Then maybe that's what it was built for. The Requiem Protocol. The Requiem Protocol was humanity's final creation before their fall, not a weapon, but a message hidden in light. It carried the last memories of Earth, laughter, songs, stories, faces, and dreams. Elias had guarded it for decades, afraid of what it could do. Now as it began to awaken, he realized it might finally serve its purpose. Athena, he said quietly, prepare the Requiem Protocol. If the time comes, release it. Are you certain, Captain? Yes, the galaxy should remember what kindness looked like. Athena's voice softened. Understood. The Emperor's decision. A few days later, the Emperor called another council meeting. My advisors, he said, I have met the human captain. I have seen no hatred in him. Perhaps we have been wrong to bury their memory. The room fell silent. One minister stood. Your Majesty, with respect, the Empire's strength lies in control. If we allow their story to return, others may question our rule. Then perhaps our rule needs to be questioned, the Emperor said quietly. His words shocked the room. But in his eyes there was a light that had not been there for many years, the light of realization. The awakening. That night, as the city below slept, a bright pulse of light spread from the vigilant. It was soft, peaceful, and full of color. It carried not destruction, but memory. Every screen across the capital flickered. Every communication channel filled with images. Blue oceans, green forests, children laughing, people holding hands, cities shining under gentle rain. The empire froze. Citizens everywhere watched in silence as the lost beauty of Earth filled their skies. The Emperor stood on his balcony, eyes wide with awe. So this is what they tried to erase. He felt something warm in his heart, a feeling long forgotten. Hope, a new dawn. When the light faded, the city remained quiet. No damage, no fear, only wonder. The Vigilant floated peacefully above the planet, its engines glowing softly. Athena's voice filled the bridge. The Requiem protocol has been released, Captain. Every world in range has received the message. Elias closed his eyes and smiled. Then humanity has spoken once more. What happens now? Athena asked. The sun rose gently over the capital world of the Galactic Empire. Golden light touched the towers, shining softly over the wide plazas and silver bridges. For the first time in many years, the city felt quiet, not from fear, but from peace. People stood outside their homes and workstations, still thinking about what they had seen the night before. The human ship's light, the Requiem, had reached every corner of the planet. It had shown them memories of blue skies, oceans, laughter, and love. Those images had touched something deep inside every heart. The Empire had always been strong, but it had forgotten how to feel. Now, after one night of light, many began to wonder if strength without kindness was truly strength at all. Whispers of change in the streets, citizens spoke softly about the human captain. Did you see the light last night? Yes. It felt like a dream. Do you think the Emperor will listen to him? Rumors spread quickly. Some people feared that the Empire's rulers would grow angry and order the human ship to leave. Others hoped that a new era was beginning, one of peace and understanding. Even among the soldiers and officers, whispers grew. Some began to question the old teachings that called humans dangerous. Others remembered ancient songs that their grandparents once sang, songs with words from Earth. Something was changing, quietly, gently, like dawn after a long night. The Emperor's thoughts inside his grand palace. Emperor Kalor stood alone before the great window that looked out over his world. His golden robe shimmered in the morning light. He had not slept. The human's message, the images, the music, the voices, had filled his dreams. He had ruled for more than 200 years, guiding the empire through wars, politics, and expansion. He had believed that order was the key to peace, but now he wasn't so sure. He whispered to himself, "We built our power to control, but what did we lose along the way?" A soft sound interrupted his thoughts. His advisor, Minister Sorrel, entered quietly. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing. "The Council awaits your decision. They demand that the human ship be removed from orbit." The Emperor turned to her slowly. "Removed? Why?" "They believe the Requiem light was a form of manipulation. They fear it may cause unrest among the citizens." Kalor sighed. "Perhaps what they call unrest is only awakening." The minister looked uneasy. "Majesty, the Council insists the Empire must not appear weak. They say peace is good only when it keeps order." The Emperor walked toward the window again. "And if order costs us our hearts, what kind of peace is that?" The minister had no answer. Inside the Vigilant far above the planet, the UHS Vigilant floated peacefully among the clouds of space. Its engines glowed softly, and its hull reflected the light of the twin suns. On the bridge, Captain Elias Ward stood beside Athena's blue holographic form. The two of them watched the capital world turning slowly below. "It's quiet," Athena said. "No ships approaching." "No threats detected." "Good," Elias replied. "Maybe they're thinking." "Do you believe the Emperor will listen?" "I think he wants to," Elias said with a calm smile. "But wanting and doing are not the same." He looked out at the horizon, his voice soft. "I've seen many leaders who feared change. They built walls to protect their power, but the ones who dared to open those walls, they built something far greater. Athena tilted her head slightly. And what did they build? Hope. The council's debate deep inside the palace. The Imperial Council gathered in the Hall of Order. The air was filled with tension. Dozens of council members sat around a shining round table, each one arguing passionately. "The human must leave at once," one shouted. "He is a danger to the Empire's unity." "A danger?" Another replied. "He brought no weapons, only light and memory. Are we so afraid of feelings now? Feelings weaken us," the first one argued. "We rule because we control emotion. Compassion leads to rebellion." A younger counselor stood, his voice calm but strong. "No, compassion leads to understanding, and understanding builds peace. The human did not attack us. He reminded us of what we used to be." The room grew noisy again as voices rose and overlapped. At last the Emperor entered. The hall fell silent immediately. Kalor looked around the table slowly. "Enough," he said quietly. "The argument ends here." He walked to the center of the room, his robe flowing like sunlight. "I have heard your fears, but I have also seen the truth. That human showed us something we lost long ago. He showed us the beauty of being alive." An older counselor frowned. "Your Majesty, if we change our ways now, the Empire may crumble." Kalor's eyes softened. "Then let it crumble. If it means we rise again as something better." The council fell silent once more. None dared to speak against him, the Emperor's invitation. That evening, a message arrived at the Vigilant. Athena's gentle voice read it aloud. "Captain Ward, by order of His Majesty Emperor Kalor, you are invited to return to the palace at sunrise. The Emperor wishes to speak with you privately." Elias smiled slightly. "It seems he has made his choice." "Should I prepare the ship for departure?" Athena asked. "Yes, and Athena?" "Yes, Captain." "Thank you for staying with me through all this." Her holographic eyes glowed softly. "Always, Elias, always." The meeting at dawn the next morning, the palace shone brighter than ever. The air was cool and the sound of soft music floated through the halls. Elias walked once more through the golden corridor, escorted by Imperial guards. But this time the guards did not look at him with suspicion. They looked at him with quiet respect. When he entered the Emperor's private chamber, Kalor was already waiting. There were no advisors, no guards, only 2 chairs and a wide window showing the rising sun. "Good morning, Captain Ward," the Emperor said kindly. "Please sit." Elias nodded and took his seat. Kalor looked tired but peaceful. "I have spent the night thinking about your words and about the light your ship released. It reminded me of something I once believed when I was young, that peace is not built by fear but by trust." Elias listened quietly. "My empire has forgotten this," Kalor continued. "We have ruled for so long that we stopped listening. But your message has changed that." He paused, then smiled faintly. "I want to make peace, Captain. Not just with humanity, but with the idea of humanity." Elias's heart lifted. "Then there is still hope for the stars," he said softly. The Emperor nodded. "There is always hope, but it needs courage to live." The Emperor's plea. Kalor turned to the window. The sunlight painted his face in gold and shadow. "Captain, I have a request. The Empire has many leaders across the galaxy. Governors, admirals, councils. They will not all accept change easily. Some will resist. Some may try to undo what we begin here." Elias nodded slowly. "That is the nature of change, Your Majesty." "Yes," Kalor agreed. "And that is why I need your help. I want you to take your ship, your Requiem, to the other worlds. Show them what you showed me. Let them see humanity's heart for themselves." Elias hesitated. "That is a great task." "It is," Kalor said gently. "But if one human could awaken the Empire's heart in a single night, imagine what one ship could do across 1,000 worlds." Elias thought for a long moment, then nodded. "I will do it, but not as a conqueror or a savior, only as a reminder." "That is all I ask," Kalor replied. They stood and bowed to one another, 2 beings from different worlds, united by understanding. The promise of the stars. As Elias returned to the Vigilant, the Empire's citizens gathered below. They cheered and waved as his ship rose into the morning sky. For the first time in living memory, joy filled the air of the Imperial capital. Athena's voice was gentle as always. "Captain, where will we go first?" Elias smiled, his eyes bright with hope. To the farthest edges, the forgotten worlds, the places the Empire left behind. That is where hope begins. The Vigilant turned slowly and began its journey into the stars once more. Glowing softly like a new sunrise, the Emperor's reflection back in the palace, Emperor Kalor stood on his balcony, watching the ship disappear into the light. Minister Sorrel joined him quietly. "Your Majesty, are you certain about this path?" "It will change everything," Kalor nodded. "Yes, the Empire must learn to listen again. The human reminded me that power without compassion is emptiness." He smiled faintly. "Let them call this weakness if they wish. I call it healing." The minister bowed her head. "Then may the stars bless your choice." The Emperor turned his gaze toward the heavens. "No," he whispered. "May they bless ours." Hope in motion days turned into weeks. News spread across the galaxy, a human ship shining with gentle light visiting world after world. Everywhere it went, it left behind messages of peace, memory, and unity. On mining planets, workers stopped to listen. On trading stations, children watched in wonder. On distant colonies, people began to speak the word human with warmth instead of fear. The Vigilant became a legend, not a weapon, but a symbol. And at the heart of it all, Captain Elias Ward kept his promise. He never spoke of revenge. He spoke of kindness, courage, and the beauty of remembering who we are. A universe. Remembered years later, songs would be written about the night the Vigilant came. They called it the Night of Light. They said it was the moment the galaxy began to heal, and though many things changed, one truth remained. One ship. One voice. One act of remembrance. That was all it took to wake an empire from its long sleep. The stars stretched endlessly before the UHS Vigilant. Each one sparkled softly like a memory waiting to be found. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the horizon of the galaxy. It had been many years since the day he first met Emperor Kalor. Years since the Requiem light had awakened the Empire's sleeping heart. But time did not weigh on him. Instead, it flowed through him gently, like a song still echoing in the distance. Beside him, the soft blue form of Athena, the ship's artificial intelligence, shimmered. Her voice was calm, but there was a warmth in it now, the kind only years of companionship could bring. "Captain," she said softly, "we have received transmissions from 12 more worlds." "They wish to join the Concord of Remembrance." Elias smiled faintly. 12 more worlds? That makes 93 in total." 94, Athena corrected kindly. "A small colony near the edge of the Mirus Belt sent a message an hour ago. They said they were inspired by your words." Elias chuckled lightly. "Our words, Athena. You're as much part of this as I am." "Perhaps," she replied, "but you gave them hope. I only carried your voice." He looked out at the stars again, his eyes reflecting their light. Hope doesn't belong to one person. It's like the stars. No one owns them, but everyone can see them. Athena was silent for a moment, as if thinking. "That is a very human way to see the universe," she said softly. Elias smiled again. "And maybe that's why we're still here." Echoes of the past the Vigilant had traveled farther than any ship before it, from the Empire's shining capital to forgotten colonies lost to time. Wherever it went, it shared the Requiem light, memories of Earth, voices of kindness, images of harmony. It showed the galaxy that humanity's true strength was not destruction, but compassion. And slowly the Empire began to change. Once, the Empire ruled through fear. Now it governed through understanding. Once people obeyed because they were afraid to question. Now they listened because they believed. The transformation wasn't fast. It wasn't easy, but it was real. On the world of Solara, soldiers built schools instead of forts. On the mining planet Drayan, workers painted murals of Earth's oceans. Even in the Emperor's palace, new gardens bloomed. Places of peace where people from every species could meet and speak freely. And through it all, one human ship continued its quiet journey across the stars. The Emperor's final message one morning, as the Vigilant drifted through the blue mist of a nebula, Athena's voice broke the silence. "Captain, an urgent transmission from the Imperial capital. It is marked personal, from Emperor Kalor himself." Elias turned slowly. "Patch it through." A holographic image appeared before him, the Emperor older now, his face calm but frail. His golden robes shimmered softly in the light. "Captain Ward," Kaler said gently, his voice warm. "If you are hearing this message, then my time is short. I wanted to speak to you one last time." Elias stood silently, listening. "The empire you helped rebuild is strong now, but not in the old way. It is strong because it remembers. The conquered of remembrance has become a symbol of unity, and I am at peace knowing it will live on after me." He smiled faintly. "You once told me that power without compassion is emptiness. I have learned that lesson well, and now as I prepare to leave this life, I see that the light you brought to us will never fade." The Emperor paused, his eyes kind. "Thank you, Elias Ward. Not as a captain, not as a warrior, but as a human being." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Athena's voice, soft and full of feeling, spoke quietly. "He was a good man," Elias nodded slowly. "He was. He remembered what it meant to care." He stood for a long time, watching the nebula swirl like a river of blue smoke. "We should visit the capital one last time," he said finally. "Setting course," Athena replied gently. "Return to the capital." When the Vigilant arrived at the imperial capital, the planet looked more alive than ever before. The once cold towers were now covered with gardens and light. Statues of peace, not war, stood in every square. As the ship descended through the clouds, thousands of people gathered to see it. Children, workers, scholars, and soldiers alike. They all knew who he was. The man who had reminded them of hope. Elias stepped out onto the platform where he had once met the Emperor. This time there were no guards, no formality, only warmth. A group of young students ran forward carrying a flag with a simple emblem, a human hand reaching toward a star. "Captain Ward," one of them cried. "We learned about Earth in school. Is it true it had blue oceans?" Elias smiled. "Yes, it did. Blue like the sky after rain." "And did humans really build cities that touched the clouds?" Another asked. "They did," he said. "But their greatest creations were never their buildings. They were their dreams." The children listened wide-eyed as he spoke. Around them, adults watched silently, many wiping tears from their eyes. The human had become more than a symbol. He had become a bridge between the past and the future, between fear and faith. The monument of light. That evening, under the twin suns, the Empire held a quiet ceremony in memory of Emperor Kaler. At the heart of the city, a new monument stood, a tall crystal tower shaped like a flame. Inside it glowed the requiem light, softly pulsing with color. It was said that the light never faded, that it carried the memory of all who had dreamed of peace. Elias stood beside the monument, his reflection glowing in the crystal surface. Athena's voice came through the small communicator in his hand. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Yes," Elias whispered. He would have liked this. "Do you think your mission is complete now?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe missions don't really end. They just change form. Like stars, they fade, but their light travels forever." He reached out and touched the monument. The light shimmered warmly beneath his hand as if answering his touch. A farewell to the Empire. A few days later, the Vigilant prepared to leave once more. Crowds gathered to see it off, citizens waving banners, children shouting words of gratitude. As the engines hummed softly, the grand voice of the new Empress echoed across the plaza through a broadcast. "To the man who gave the stars back their heart," she said, "we thank you. Wherever you go, Captain Ward, know that you will always have a home among us." Elias bowed his head. "Thank you," he said softly. "May the light always guide your way." The Vigilant rose slowly, climbing through the clouds until it vanished into the golden horizon. The endless journey time passed. The ship traveled farther than ever, beyond the known borders of the Empire, into the quiet regions of uncharted space. Elias grew older, but his eyes still carried the same calm fire. Athena, eternal as ever, stayed by his side, her voice as gentle as the first day they met. "Captain," she said one day, "we have crossed the edge of mapped territory. No signals detected, no colonies ahead." Elias nodded. "Then we'll go a little farther. There's always something waiting to be found." "Even at the edge of everything?" "Especially there," he replied with a small smile. The stars outside grew brighter, sharper, like diamonds scattered on velvet. The Vigilant drifted silently among them, leaving a faint trail of light. The legacy of humanity years turned into decades. Across the empire, people still spoke the name Elias Ward with reverence. Schools taught his story, not as a tale of battle, but as a lesson of courage and peace. Artists painted the Vigilant soaring through the stars. Children whispered before bed, "May the captain watch over us." On the anniversary of the Requiem light, every world dimmed its lights for 1 minute, a moment of remembrance, a tradition that became known as the Minute of Stillness. During that minute, the entire galaxy paused, not in fear, but in gratitude. They remembered the night one human reminded them that even the smallest light could change the vastest darkness. The star that never faded, one knew exactly when the Vigilant stopped sending transmissions. One day its signal simply faded, quiet and peaceful, like a song coming to its last note. But something remarkable happened. In the night sky above the Imperial capital, a new star appeared and are bright, steady, and gentle. It was unlike any other. Scientists said it was a reflection of an old nebula's light, but to the people, it was something more. They called it the Star of Humanity. They said it was Captain Ward's final gift, his promise that even when voices fade, the light of kindness endures. Every night children looked up and whispered, "That's the star that never faded." And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, perhaps the Vigilant still drifted, silent, eternal, carrying the dreams of a species that had once been forgotten but never truly lost. Epilogue: Light Beyond the Horizon. Many centuries later, long after the Empire had changed and the old stars had shifted in the sky, explorers discovered a faint energy trail in deep space. It led to a quiet system with one small sun and a single planet covered in blue oceans and green land. At its center lay a monument, a silver hull, half buried in sand, glowing faintly with blue light. On it were carved simple words, written in Old Earth language. "We were never conquerors. We were dreamers," was Vigilant, and beside it, a line that seemed almost like a whisper from the past. "No light is ever truly gone, as long as someone remembers." The explorers stood in silence, feeling the peace of that place. Then one of them looked up at the sky and saw a single bright star shining above. It was still there. The star that never faded,